Want some, get some. How about those friggin' Pirates?
Yes, I am a pirate.
You have to go with the Pirates because, of course, they have cannons and everything.
It's a pirate's life for me.
Be proud of who you are and what you are. You're Pirates.
It is a first down. Pirates.
Because when you're at East Carolina, you go for it every time. Or you don't coach at East Carolina, you don't come to East Carolina, you don't play at East Carolina with a weak heart. Write it.
I don't think I've ever been in a building as loud as that was. It was deafening in there.
We will get them on. I can promise you that.
Painted purple all night long in Eastern North Carolina.
You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.
Yeah. My heart is purple and gold. I'm a pirate down to my soul. And I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode.
Welcome into the Pirate Preview on the Sports Objective. Good evening, everyone, as we get ready, counting down the days as Appalachian State AF is on the clock. A man that's his second favorite team. Don't tell anybody. I know it's a guilty pleasure. From China Grove, North Carolina, Bubba Rosenbaum. How are you, sir?
Well, Dave, the secret's out. I'm glad we could get that out of the way here in the first 15 seconds of the show. But, doing well, fired up about what the atmosphere is going to be like this weekend at Dowdy-Ficklen, 4 o'clock kickoff on ESPNU. We're hearing that at minimum there's going to be around 48,000, maybe even a sellout. Last I heard, as of Tuesday, there were about 2,500 or so tickets remaining.
By the way, let's bring in Matt Simmons, a former linebacker under Coach Steve Logan in the 1990s, one of the best linebackers of all time, number 49. And I was told that Matt's the Simmons Challenge. That he'll buy, if you buy 500, he'll buy 500 tickets. We're gonna go big.
Wow. Wow.
We're just kidding. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, you know what, man? First of all, Dave, I appreciate that high praise.
You were great.
Every year it gets a little better,
Yeah, you've got 10 sacks now on Peyton Manning. In one game.
But yeah, hey man, great to hear that we're gonna have an awesome crowd this Saturday night, and we're gonna need it. We're gonna need every bit of that. I hope we can continue to sell tickets. I hope we're aggressive trying to, find creative ways to move all those tickets, because we're gonna need a packed house against this team. And look, any advantage you can get, in terms of crowd noise and just excitement in the stadium will be helpful.
Especially in the upper deck there, Matt and Bubba. Hey, if you have Boys and Girls Club, reduced tickets, $10 or something. I mean, anything like that where you still make some money on the inventory. Not that I'll leave it to Coleman, Spain, and AJ and all those great folks. They work really, really hard, a thankless job in the ticket office, and they put it with people like me. So I will tell them, thank them for all that they're Pirates, and I'm really proud to have them do such a great job. And this time of year is really, really hard. So let's make them work even harder by having a sellout and a final push. Maybe they can have I don't know, what would you guys say, with a pop-up, what is it called, a flash sale or something where they could give I don't know. I'll leave it to them. They're the experts, not me.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you, Dave. Look, I mean, this has a chance to be one of those special days inside Dowdy-Ficklen. Yeah. That seems like we haven't had one for a while now. We've had some really great crowds in recent years. Some of the games I was at the South Carolina game. I don't know if it was 3 or 4 years ago. I was at the NC State game several years back, a game Scotty Moe's tenure that we won. So we've had some awesome crowds over the years, but we're kind of starving for that moment. I heard somebody say earlier on I guess it was on Hoist the Color. Somebody said it really well that, we're just kind of starving for a new moment in Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium. And I agree with that. And hey, what a great opportunity, Bubba. I mean, listen, you're 2-0, you're at home, you have App State coming in, who's coming off of a pretty much what you would call a beatdown at Clemson, and they're going to be hungry. But what a great opportunity.
I'm looking forward to it. You guys know that I'm teasing Bubba because we tease Bubba about that's his second favorite school, because he's in the western part of the state, and he has connections there. People he knows, how much he loves the Pirates. Bubba, from your folks that work there and the connections you have at App State, we know how big it is for us. How big is it for App playing us?
They love the matchup. Everything you hear Sean Clark, the head coach of the Mountaineers, who played for App back in the 90s when they were in 1AA as it was at the time. Yeah, he loves it, and he says all the things that you would hope to hear, as an App State fan or as an East Carolina fan, in my opinion. And I know John Gilbert has said on multiple occasions in interviews this year and in the past that he and Doug Gillen are in talks. So you have this game and then a game in Greenville. I think it's in 2026, if I'm not mistaken. I'll double check that in a moment. But yeah, this was a deal where you played obviously in Charlotte in 21 and then last year in Boone before consecutive games, although not in consecutive years, in Greenville. And got to find a way to get it done. And, like I think it was Sean Clark said, or excuse me, it was somebody else that made this comment. I think maybe it was Adam Witten that we'll have on later tonight, the play-by-play voice of App State. And he said he'd like to see it be an annual thing, and I wholeheartedly agree. It's what college football is about, and if you're in Boone, you're going to have 40,000 or right at 40,000, and if you're in Greenville, you're going to have around 50,000, like we'll have this weekend.
Well, guys, that one of the reasons, not only because these are two great football programs, and it was a rivalry, especially back in the day in the Southern Conference. Pat Dye era was the last time that was true as far as being in the same conference. But anyway, let's show the North Carolinas of the world, especially, that these in-state matchups bring tons and tons and tons of money. I mean, you look at back a few years ago, average, guess how much a home football game brings in? We're going to be more now. I need to update my numbers. But a few years ago, the average football game at Dowdy-Ficklen, a home game, brought in $2 million to the economy in Greenville. So just think about that. That's just on probably an average game. How much? Probably in the $3 million range now, because I haven't checked in the last few years. But just think about that from the economic perspective. How much money Boone, Greenville, Chapel Hill, Raleigh, Durham, Wake Forest, Winston-Salem, when you're playing all these in-state matchups, Charlotte, how much they bring into the local economy.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, it's great. And, that is the bonus of playing, these in-state teams. And, think about it. You go to the game. Not only do you go to the game, but usually you're going to go out to dinner after, right? Yep. You might stay in a hotel. So to your point, you're really kind of stimulating the local economy in a lot of different ways. And I just love it, man. Greenville on these type of days, it's a special place. And I hope the weather cooperates, fellas. That's one, it doesn't look like it's going to be awful, whatever it is, but there's definitely a chance of rain. So hopefully the weather cooperates. But, just looking forward to seeing it, man. I was trying to get down there for the game. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to.
Oh, man.
I tried, but, I'll be cheering from home, watching on ESPN Plus.
Hey, by the way, Matt, if we get a win, Bubba and I, we're going to be going to Bubby. Well, it'll be too late. It'll be closed. But Bubba and I like to go after games, and his family. We've done it a few times. Barbecue on Memorial Drive. I tell you what, when you win a game, that barbecue tastes good, don't it, Bubba? That family style. We get family style with Semenza.
Oh yeah, Parker's is good anytime, like you say. And I mentioned Adam Witten will be joining the show during the second half hour. Here in about 10 minutes, and we'll be joined by Charles Haynes. He is from the Black and Gold podcast. We had him on a year ago, and Big C, prides himself on being the world's greatest App State fan. So interested to hear what he has to say about this matchup. I know he was down in Death Valley, and he was certainly at all the home games and travels to at least an away game or two per year. And he's he's the equivalent of ourselves for App State. So interested to get his take, as well as play-by-play voice Adam Witten during that second half hour tonight.
Bubba's shooting big, man. 2 great guests tonight, and we're going to have a lot of fun. I tell you what, guys, this matchup really intrigues me because you have the hungry App State, and I think you also have, Matt, you have the hungry East Carolina as well, because we are, when I say lucky, we're blessed to be 2-0. We have not played our best football, and we're 2-0. And you talked about it last year. Good teams find a way to win. We haven't played our best. We're winning now. Winning begets winning. It's like it breeds winning. And I think, I talk about it all the time. One of the things I love about the 90s, obviously, I know I'm biased because that's my decade at ECU, but I talk about it all the time. Matt Simmons is the world, Jeff Carls, Rod Coleman, Travis Darden, all those guys on defense, Mo Foreman. You guys had a chip on your shoulder, and you showed everybody you could play with anyone in the nation. And that's what these fellas, I hope, over the course of this season will realize just how great they are.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, those are some great names you mentioned there, Dave. And there's no question those teams always play with a chip on their shoulder. And the more you told them something they couldn't do, the more they were going to do it. But, I mean, when you look at this game, it's a really great chance to build momentum, right, for ECU. You're 2-0. You're at home. You have a really solid opponent coming in that we all respect. I think that's the first thing that
right.
When you think about App State 15 years ago, they were kind of like the little brother. You know what I mean? Like they had our respect, but they were kind of that little brother who you didn't really fear them or but now, hey, listen, they've done a fantastic job building that program. So it's a great opportunity and a chance to build momentum. And from when you look at from a defensive perspective, like as well as our defense has played, they haven't really played well against App in recent years. And you look back to that game last year in Boone, quite a few explosive plays. They did, hit us a few times on the outside zone stretch. They hit us on the play action. So as well as the defense has played, this is a big challenge for them this week, Bubba, to kind of prove to themselves that they can stop this offense, this particular App State team.
Yeah, and I was hearing a conversation earlier today that said that App State had actually deviated from that their bread and butter, and so that's something I'm really interested to get the take of Adam Witten and Big C here in the next little bit, as far as that goes, to see if that is in fact the case or if that was misinformation. But obviously, the elephant in the room with East Carolina is the turnovers. I mean, the Pirates are averaging over 32 points a game, and then you have over 450 yards per game because you had 465 the other night at ODU. Just so many points left on the table because of the inability to take care of the football, and obviously there's so many good things, and that's something that last night I visited with the guys on the Black and Gold podcast, and they were kind of confused by my statement, and like how can there be so many good things if you've thrown 7 interceptions in 2 games, especially when one of those games was against Norfolk State, and I kind of explained myself, and I think Josh Thomas, who's a Mountaineer great that went on to play in the CFL. He played from 2015 to 2019 and is now the general manager of Tigma, one of their NIL collectives. I think he knew where I was coming from when I mentioned 65% completion rate and throwing for right at 300 yards per game. Just those 4 to 5 decisions that need to be eliminated.
Yeah, no doubt. I think one of the things is this team, and the other thing that we talked about all summer long preseason is the fact that this team, it was going to take time to gel, and we wanted everybody. We were kind of concerned. Remember that, like, you could easily, like Kyle talked about, we could beat Norfolk State, then you could lose to either App or You could lose to maybe Old Dominion on the road. You may lose a few games that we were not anticipating. So don't jump off the bandwagon because the offense, these are brand new players. A lot of them have never played together. So it would take the chemistry, the time to gel, and really to get their feet under them, so to speak. And just think about that. The fact that we're 2-0, we haven't played our best. And I appreciate the fan base. It's great to see people stepping up. And it's funny, guys, because last year I couldn't give the tickets away. Now I've got people. I got a friend. He hasn't been to a football game with me in 9 years. He hit me up a couple days ago. That lets you know the program is back when a guy from the Triangle is saying, "Hey, I want to go to a Pirate game with you again."
Absolutely. And listen, if you're a fan of ECU and if you don't want to be in the stadium this weekend, then you might need to check your pulse because, I'll just put it right out there in a very honest way. I mean, there might be something wrong because what more do you want? Seriously, what more do you want? Except for that little audio that just popped in. We don't want that. But seriously, I mean, what an opportunity. And I'm glad to hear that those people are coming back and we need them back. We really do. We need all hands on deck, as they say, for a game like this. But yeah, I mean, as Mike Houston said, listen, very good opponent. You know that what we saw last week at Clemson was not who they are. So we know we're going to see a much better team this Saturday, right, Bubba?
Yeah, I think Dave's trying to get us copyrighted there on YouTube. But going back to my previous comment, thank you, Johnny Gardner, for reaching out. I was drawing a blank on where I'd heard that. That was from Doug Martin. So I feel very confident. He's been able to watch some game film more than I have of App State. Of course, they were playing East Tennessee State the day that we were playing Norfolk State. Only saw highlights of that game, and very similar. Last week, I was in Norfolk for the game against the Monarchs, so I was unable to see anything. But the condensed game, and just you can, if you're interested in seeing some of what App has this year, you have the condensed game on YouTube against Clemson, 25 minutes. I was able to watch probably about 5 minutes of that. So don't really have a feel. I did not realize, like Coach Martin said, that they had kind of strayed away from their bread and butter with that stretch play. But, a lot of folks chiming in tonight on YouTube and Facebook. Appreciate everyone. We'll get to some of these comments, as we get to those topics throughout the show. Again, Charles Haynes, Big C from the Black and Gold podcast will be joining us here momentarily in the next couple minutes to talk ECU App State. And Matt, one of the things that we were discussing this afternoon is just the ability to run the football with some consistency. And you have to have some semblance of a running game like we did last week. And the Pirates did surrender 3 sacks, and with the decision making that we've seen thus far from Jake Garcia, I really expect App State to try to heat him up and bring a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I do too. And last week we didn't really show that we have, at least against pressure last week, from what I saw, we didn't really show the ability to check it down or hit the hot route. So that's something I think that they see on film, and I think they're going to try to replicate that and dial up pressure. However, I think we're 1 week further into the offense. We had another week in the film room watching the ODU game, and I think we'll be a little more prepared for that. But I think the big thing, Bubba, is when they do bring pressure, we need to have a way for the quarterback to get rid of the ball. And, I think that's going to be a really big thing so we don't take sacks. And to your point about running the ball, I mean, I totally agree. And we don't have to run the ball for 200 yards, but we do have to show the run. We have to have some success to keep them off balance and then set up, plays down the field. So I agree. Definitely need to have some running game.
Kind of on that front, Javius Bond, unfortunately, went down in that first half against Old Dominion. We're hearing that, the the test that they did, and everything was checking out very well. He was able to practice today to some extent, and it looks like we may potentially have him this weekend. We shall see.
I certainly hope so. Definitely good news on that MRI to hear. And hey, if we have him, that's a bonus. And if we don't, I feel pretty good about the depth we have there. Really like what I saw last week out of Marlon Gunn, Bubba. It's been a long time, I feel like, since we've seen Gunn get even a handful of carries like that. And I thought, when you look at the stat sheet, you're not going to be blown away, but he ran the ball hard, and he was running physically. He was dragging defenders. He was making people miss. So I really like to see that because he's flashed that talent in the past.
Excellent statistics here from Johnny Stats on Johnny Robertson chiming in via Facebook. He says keys to victory are the running games and cutting down on penalties. App State in those last two meetings in 2021 and 2023 had 3 100-yard rushers and 484 yards rushing in those matchups. The Pirates rushed for 185 yards and had 170 penalty yards in those consecutive losses to the Mountaineers. And it was clear in each game that the line of scrimmage was controlled by App State, especially that matchup in Charlotte.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. First of all, Johnny Robertson always bringing the stats. But that's good stuff there from Johnny. But, very frustrating that they've been able to have so much success against us recently. And, again, we know what it's going to be. Like, there's not going to be any surprises. Apps run pretty much the same offense for several years. Really good personnel. I really think one of the keys to this game, Bubba, is limit the explosive plays. Don't give up the 70-yard run on the zone stretch. Don't give up the 60-yard off play action. If we can limit those plays, I think we'll have a much better chance to win. And quite honestly, man, I see us as the favorite in this game. Not only are we home, but I think we have enough talent this year where we should win this game.
Yeah, to your point about the big plays, last year the Pirates went right down the field on that opening possession, and then App State responded with a touchdown run of about 60 or 65 yards by Nate Noel, who's now at Missouri.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I didn't realize he went to Missouri.
But Matt, we now have Big C with us, from the Black and Gold podcast. Big C, how are you?
Great, Bubba. How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing well. We appreciate you coming on. Enjoyed the conversation last night on the Black and Gold podcast. Definitely go and check that out. We retweeted it on X. So definitely give it a listen. Excellent conversation with me, Big C, AJ, and then also I believe Josh Thomas from Tigma. He's the general manager of that App State collective. And really some excellent insight to this weekend's matchup. First of all, Big C, I know you were down at Clemson. Certainly not what any of us expected. Like I said last night on your show, I was fully expecting App State to be, able to cover at that plus 17.5 or so, whatever the line was.
Yeah, that was certainly a tough one, and I think we can all, as college football fans, can look and think about the success that App has had against some other P5s, P4s, whatever you want to call them, and those aren't like your typical football powers like the North Carolina, South Carolina, and people like that. Clemson is, even if they're so-called down and not performing up to their old standards, it's really hard for to pull NFL draft picks. Into your quarterback pipeline like they did with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. And Cade Klubnik sure looked like that on Saturday night. I think he only missed on 2 passes, had 5 touchdown passes in total, and ran for a couple. It's just unlike anything we've seen. Not used to we're definitely not used to watching that kind of stuff. And we were shell shocked, and it's just a very, very, very long night.
Yeah, Big C. I mean, first of all, thanks for coming on. Appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, I mean, it was almost shocking to me because we've become so accustomed to seeing App State through the years play so well, against the so-called powerhouses, right? I mean, even I recall a game a few years ago up at Penn State. I think it went to overtime, and it just seems like App State is always, if they're not winning those games, they're certainly right there. And I actually took them to cover the 17. I think it was 17 or 17 and a half last week. So it was kind of shocked to see that. But I think anybody who really follows college football knows that that's not really who App State is. It was more of a fluke than anything. So with that said, how does App turn the page as they come into Greenville, kind of put that behind them and get ready for another tough road test?
Yeah, it's really tough. Just to go back on that one point, I mean, we had gone 8 games in a row with keeping a P4, P5 game within 8 points. So we were kind of due one. And I think Clemson made up for a lot of teams. But if anything, I feel much better about App coming off a loss than saying if we would have made a game of it, then you have that hangover effect. We saw that with Texas A&M. Sean Clark's coached that team in 2022, and that absolutely drained us for the entire season. We went 6-6, missed a bowl. We had the Hail Mary, and then we blew a huge lead to James Madison, which we shouldn't have done. So I actually feel better, if that makes any sense, if you can feel good about coming off a 46-point loss where you gave up 66 points, because I think our team will truly focus on the task at hand, knowing that we haven't won in Greenville since 1959. That's kind of a long time, and so you get up for these in-state games. I know that we kind of recruit against each other for some guys, not everybody, but that there's going to be something to that. There's probably guys who have played on high school teams who are on opposite sidelines this weekend. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think we'll respond right. Over the course of our history, we don't go and lose 2 in a row. It's just not what we do. And so everybody's saying that we're going to do exactly what to Clemson, or do exactly what the ECU what Clemson did to us. I don't think it's going to be anything like that, but I can certainly see how the players would be fired up.
No doubt. Big C, thank you again for coming on. It's one of the things about this matchup that I like is the fact that both fan bases are so passionate about football and just great fans in general. You have Boone, which I love very much. You have Greenville, which obviously that's my school, love very much. What can you talk? I know we asked Bubba earlier, but from your perspective, being the quote, I guess the biggest App State fan in the world, tell us about your perspective from App State playing East Carolina. How big of a game is this for you guys?
I mean, it's a big one. I mean, we have a very busy September. A home opener, Clemson, East Carolina, and then we play our first conference game next Thursday, and then Liberty. That's a very, very busy September. So, if you put all that together, it's kind of hard to pick one that's like the least important or the most important. I remember the game in Boone last year in 2021 in Charlotte. I mean, these folks know each other. These are families that are intermingled with where they've gone to school. I have people on my wife's side who went to East Carolina, and I've had the upper hand at picking on them a little bit. So there's a lot of that going on. So I think the bragging rights certainly matter, not just on the field, across the sidelines, but at Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving and all that good stuff. You get to, the people you see only a couple times a year, you get to say, hey, how about that football game? And that's always fun.
You look at the roots of these schools, they're both teacher training schools at their when they were founded, and obviously still churn out a lot of educators today.
Yeah, my dad went to App. He was an educator. All my wife's friends are teachers. So I'm very familiar with that. and how important that is to both sides of the state. I mean, we turned out the national board certified teachers at the highest rate of anybody in the state, and we compete with anybody in the nation with that. So, we talk about the sidelines and Thanksgiving dinner. We're talking about the classrooms of elementary schools all across this great state, where there will be some bragging rights for sure.
Something we were talking about earlier, very quickly, Matt, is what Adam Witten said today on Pirate Radio in an interview that I heard, and then also Sean Clark. I love anytime he's asked about this matchup. Hey, this is what makes college football great. We'd love to see it played. At least every other year, if not annually. I certainly would love to see it annually. What's the thought of yourself, and then also just the app fans in general?
I think we would certainly welcome that. Why not? Anytime you've got a chance to go to, now that we're in these big conferences that are spread across several states, why not go to a road game where it's 4 hours away or 5 hours away, whatever it is? That's just campus to campus. You're not talking about these people where App has a huge alumni base. I'm sure East Carolina does in Raleigh and in Charlotte and all throughout the Triangle and the Triad and all that good stuff. So it's just great. It's great for the water cooler. It's great for work. It's great for you name it. There's no reason not to play when we're this close, when we play conference games in Texas and Louisiana and of the sort.
Big C, you were talking about that. Would you guys have it Labor Day weekend? Or I could even see this game being a Thanksgiving weekend. I think that would be really cool, because to me, when everybody tries to make Charlotte our rival, I think App State is a friendly rivalry. It's not like we don't like App State. But once we get on the field, that might be another story. But this is a great rivalry in state, and that would be really cool. I have no problems with playing App State every single year. I think it's great for the fan bases. And if you look at these two teams, both fan bases care about football. I will argue more than any other team or fan base in the state. I know NC State fans will probably argue with me, but sure. I think they're more of a basketball school.
Yeah, that's a tough one about NC State, but certainly that's both of our schools' primary sport. I mean, I would love to see this be an annual game or just have whatever that next series looks like, for it to be very soon. We've always tried to have our conference games at the end of the year, kind of do the 4 and then the 8. So I don't know about Thanksgiving, but I think there'd be a cool way to do it. We got to have like the third weekend in September or something like that. That would be neat. Something that would be set on the schedule. Our end of the year games tend to be Georgia Southern and James Madison. Our conference is trying to make a thing out of James Madison and us. But yeah, I mean, we're going to play Georgia Southern late more often than not. That is our probably most hated rival in our conference, and has been over 2 conferences and over 30 years now. But I would love to have something set up so where we could see y'all every year.
Sounds good to me. What keys to the game are you looking for on Saturday, Big C?
It's a lot of the people are going to say that this is going to it should be a close game, and I agree. So ECU is certainly doing things differently than they did last year, and we haven't really shown what we need to show yet. We haven't had the opportunity, and maybe we're not because we don't want to. Certain games are circled for different reasons. A conference game is important, and as far as the G5 is concerned, Liberty, as much as we all probably all hate to say that, is an important game because of where they are and what they did last year. But I mean, I think that it'll be tight. I do think we're going to respond well. I don't know what that looks like, but even when I was walking out of the game last week at Clemson, I asked a buddy, what's the line? What do you think the line would be? What do you think is fair? And we were both like between 4 and 6. And considering the result, we were like, that, it's probably what, we're dealing with. And, you shave a couple off of that, and it's probably right where it needs to be. I expect a close game. I don't expect anything like last year. We haven't shown we can run the ball yet, like we have in the previous 2 matchups, but I have a feeling we're going to make an emphasis on that. And I think we'll do everything we can to open up the passing game and get some chunk plays. Our defense does need to respond one way or the other. We have not had the big plays yet on defense. We haven't had a turnover that really swings the momentum, and that's the big part of the games, especially when you play on the road. You got to have those turnovers to swing momentum. But I think it'll be tight if everything goes as everyone expects.
Big C, just looking back at last week, one final time in the Clemson game, what was it defensively that led to some of those big plays? Do you have new faces back there? Is it something schematically just early in the season, guys not being on the same page? What do you think it was that kind of just led to some of those explosive plays?
So a lot of those are the passing plays. The one that concerns me more than anything is we've given up another long touchdown run. We did that to ETSU. We did that to Clemson. That is concerning. It was our Achilles heel last year, and we play smaller. So we will be susceptible to it, but we've got to get out there and tackle. That's the most important thing. If we're not tackling and we're misaligned, then we're going to be in bad shape. But honestly, I think we were overthinking the game, all in that first quarter, because there's no way that something like that happens without something being in someone's head or two or three guys' heads, and one bad play leads to another. Another guy sees this and says, "Oh, we don't have this," or whatever. It really didn't make any sense at all because it was very just not us. And we do have some newer guys who have not been on that stage before. We haven't played, at Clemson, at night, home opener. That's a big deal. When we played at Texas A&M, it was hot. It was the middle of the day. They didn't have a huge crowd. They weren't full, and they were just ripe for the picking. And sometimes that happens. And, so Clemson's a different animal. I don't think it was something that we were doing wrong. I just think we were overplaying things.
Yeah. One of the things I really like about this matchup this week is you have two teams about the clash that both have a lot of motivation for this game. You look at Clemson, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll give the example of South Carolina the week before. South Carolina kind of got manhandled a little bit by ODU. They were very embarrassed. People told them all week that they were a bad team. They went back to work and they played really well at Kentucky and came out with a win. I think you're going to have an App State team, right? On your end of things, I think you're going to have an App State team that heard all week about Clemson. They're tired of hearing about it. They're going to want to get that taste out of their mouths. On the ECU side, you have a team that is also very motivated because we've lost the last several times to App, and it hasn't always been pretty. So I think that's what makes this, to me, an intriguing matchup. You have two teams very motivated for different reasons, and I'm expecting a hell of a fight. I think it's going to be a war.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to be 1-2. And we definitely want to make up for what happened last week. I'm not saying 60 points, but just say, hey, look, let's put our best foot forward and play like we know how we're supposed to play. And ECU has every reason to want to put 2023 in the rearview mirror as well. Like that's not ECU football. 2-10 is not ECU. So they can certainly build some confidence, get to 3-0, and maybe people will start believing, on y'all's side that, hey, we've made the changes that are working, or that's made us a lot better, and so get on the bandwagon and go. So that would be great for y'all as well, for ECU. So certainly intriguing. There's going to be, I know earlier y'all were talking about penalties. I foresee that as well. It's just a chippy part of the game, we're from the same state, same, high school teammates probably somewhere, or at least they played against each other in high school more than likely. But yeah, I think it's going to be a high impact game, high atmosphere. Apparently y'all are expecting a pretty good crowd. It's at the time of day when y'all would probably prefer to play than when we would. It was 47 degrees in Boone this morning, so it's not going to be like the 83 or 84, 85 or whatever it's going to be on Saturday.
Now, Big C, you reference App's inability to run the football thus far, and the way you guys typically do. I heard something interesting earlier today. Doug Martin, who was former East Carolina offensive coordinator and then an FBS head coach at Kent State and New Mexico State, Coach Martin said that the film he's seen, you haven't seen as much of that, the patented stretch play, like you've seen in the past. What can you tell us about that? Because I honestly, have only seen highlights.
And I think the biggest part of this is that we replaced 4 offensive linemen from last year's team, and they were all transfer guys. And so I think we're getting we're trying to gel. We're trying to build a chemistry. They're trying to work together. You can only do practice. A lot of that you got to put the game film out there. You got to study it, and you got to say, we just need more reps together. And on top of that, they got to learn their running backs as well. I mean, they're a running back will say it's important for me to know what the line's going to do, as the line knows what I am going to do. So little things like that can bust a 3-yard gain into 8. And so I think that just kind of got to get some consistency. We haven't given the ball specifically to one guy a lot, and then it's hey, this guy's not working out. We've really spread it out. We were really intentional in fall camp with not overworking players and making sure they're not work too much. That the harder you work, the more fatigued you are, the better chance you'll have at injury. So we're really trying to do a good job of keeping everyone fresh. I would expect though that maybe we'll unleash that a little bit more this weekend. Maybe you'll see someone like Kanye Roberts get more than 6 or 7 or 8 carries. So we've done a real good job of just spreading it out. Everybody seems to be healthy. And I think just, at some point we're going to find a hot hand. We're going to find the right offensive line combination. And once it starts clicking, it'll really click.
You mentioned Kanye Roberts. He was referenced earlier today by East Carolina defensive coordinator Blake Harrell, and I believe he's an Eastern North Carolina kid. And then you have a homegrown kid that he had a touchdown against Clemson. Certainly has had other games where he's shined, and I know he looked much thicker against the Tigers than he had in the past, and that's Anderson Castle.
Anderson he wears linebackers pads, it seems. In person, I've talked to him without pads on. Just doesn't look that imposing, but something about when he puts those pads on, he plays bigger and he doesn't shy from contact. He doesn't mind getting hit, and he plays like a fullback, a little bit kind of an old school fullback. He's really good at pass protection. He will get in there and he will chip whoever he needs to chip, whether that be safety, linebacker, defensive end, you name it. He'll get what he needs to get and help the team. He will put his body on the line. So my concern is whenever Anderson Castle gets in the game and we start rolling with him, that's when teams that we play are in trouble, because then we've got a little bit of the 1-2 punch. I don't want to say thunder and lightning because that's kind of overused, but I don't think that Kanye Roberts could beat Anderson Castle that much in a foot race. But I would certainly prefer Anderson Castle and pass protect over Kanye.
Go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, I was on mute there. So for me, Big C, talking about we had a question marks as far as offensive line. In fact, Matt, we were talking about in the offseason about the transfer portal. I think they've done a decent job. I think it's better than it was. We've got, Matt, 4 or 5 returning guys on offensive line. How does your defensive line, how are they this year?
We do a lot of rotating there, and I think you're probably what we're seeing on the defensive line is very similar to what's going on pretty much throughout the whole defense, is that we're trying to stay fresh. We want to rotate 7, 8, 9 guys. We're not going to have one guy out there for 55 snaps. So whenever we have that opportunity to unleash against a team that is more traditional and not fast-paced up-tempo like ECU seems to be, I think you'll really see that play in our favor. But we're trying right now to play games in November. We're trying to win those games in September by being the best we can be. So you will see a ton of different guys at linebacker, and at safety, at the defensive line. And whether you want to call Nate Johnson, who's really an edge, an outside linebacker who can put his hand in the dirt, premier pass rusher. He's somebody to keep an eye on. If y'all are sitting in the pocket and waiting, he's going to come find you. He's an excellent player. He's really quick twitch, and he knows how to get back there. I think he had 3 sacks against ODU last year alone. They just couldn't get a hand on him.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the keys to this game, fellas, and when you look at it from the outside looking in, right? Like, I can only imagine what App State fans think when they look at our stats and they see, hey, 7 interceptions, and they see the turnovers, right? And probably, to somebody who hasn't watched the tape, probably thinks like, hey, like ECU's quarterback is not very good. When in fact, it's more of he is a very, very talented player, really strong arm. Just new to this system, hasn't played in a few years because of transfers and whatnot, transferring to different schools. But he's a guy with a lot of talent. So, from the ECU perspective, I think what we're hoping for is that, this is the week where it all comes together, right? And people become comfortable in the offense. We don't see we limit the turnovers. We don't see the interceptions. And I think that's going to be another, you talk about keys to the game. In a type of close game like this, it could come down to whoever turns the ball over, the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was actually something I wrote about. It was that, this is a dangerous ECU team. When they get it figured out, it might be trouble because you've got a good, solid defense. If you can just cut down on the turnovers and the timing of the turnovers, it's clear that, you run a lot of plays. The more plays you run, the more familiar you're going to get with things. It just seems to be just a couple bad throws because you haven't suffered from them. And it's just, the more time, the more plays you run, the more opportunity you're going to have those big numbers pop up like 7 interceptions. So I think it actually looks a lot worse than it actually is. So I'm just hoping, fingers crossed, that y'all don't get it figured out this weekend. Save that for the American.
Well, that's the thing is this stretch, as Bubba can tell you and Matt can tell you, Big C. I don't know if you've seen their schedule, but you have Old Dominion. They were a bowl team last year. You guys are great. You have Liberty, UTSA. There's like about 4 or 5 games. And not that our schedule is god awful, but this has to be, in my opinion, the toughest stretch coming up the next few games.
Yeah, for both teams. I've actually thought about that quite a bit. I was looking at when y'all played ODU, when you played Liberty, and I'm like, our coaches are probably going to get tired of looking at App State film, and ODU film, and Liberty film, and ECU film, and we're going to see a lot of it. So it's only going to help us out down the road, and I think that's important. But yeah, these early season games, when they mean something, it's a big deal. So, there's going to be bragging rights here beyond just, family meals and stuff. This will matter down the road when bowl selection comes into play. I think y'all are probably a bowl team. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what y'all's goals are, but I think that's probably, with this offense, and if you get some good defensive play, that's probably within the realm of possibility.
We won a conference championship, right, Matt?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. It's always the goal. It's always the goal. I mean, I think the key for this team is we feel really good about the defense and kind of the depth we have this year, but offensively, can we bring it all together? I think, a lot of times the pieces are there. You'll have the pieces, but does it come together to a point where you can win games and beat good teams? And, I think that's, again, another thing that makes this game this weekend very intriguing is, can it come together fast enough? Because, listen, new offense, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, that's great, but it can't click, in the last 3 or 4 games of the season. It has to click early if you want to get to that point where you contend for a championship.
And it comes down to the running game too with Javius Bond. I know that you guys said our good friend Steven Igo from Hoist the Colors. He said that Bond practiced it today. I know we had a question about Javius Bond. Bond, Big C, is a good running back, but he had a situation with his hamstring last year. It's kind of been a nagging injury. I don't know that that's the case. Bubba, have you heard any more? I know they did it. Didn't they do an MRI, you said?
Yeah, I've heard that everything showed up well and that he was going through practice today, at least to some extent. And we shall see, if he plays and how much he plays this weekend. But, we've talked about the running backs on Big C. Joey Aguilar, record-setting season a year ago, threw for over 3,700 yards, a school record, and for a single season, and then over 4,000 yards of total offense. So, obviously he can certainly hurt you with his legs as well. And then talk about some of those wideouts that he has to distribute the ball to, like Caden Robinson, Christian Horn, and Mekhi Jackson.
Yeah, Joey kind of has had a little bit of a slow start, if we must. Clemson played really tight coverage, and his percentage was kind of down under 50%. So it doesn't look good on paper, but we know what he has. We know he has a strong arm, and we know he can get it across the field wherever he needs to put it. But a little bit of a slow start. I will say that, you mentioned it with his legs. He looks a lot better in the zone read. I thought he looked really good against ETSU. I know that's, it's an FCS program or whatever, but it looked more crisp than I remembered last year. I was like, that's the way it's supposed to be run. And he's the guy who was not going to slide or anything like that. He's going to put his shoulder into you and go for extra yards. And obviously we have a veteran receiving core. Caden Robinson is as an all Sun Belt selection. He's probably going to be our leading receiver, right at 1,000 yards last year, 10 touchdowns. Christian Horn is a veteran. He's in his 5th year. He is a captain, team leader. He may not make all the flashy plays, but when he makes one, he makes it look pretty effortless. And I'll say this about Mekhi Jackson. He's kind of coming on, and he's going to be kind of our X guy, a real X factor. He got some running plays against ETSU. He got some reverses against Clemson, and he just knows how to run with the football. There's not like a speed aspect to it. There's no bunch of juking or anything like that. He just knows how to wiggle and find the space. And I think he's going to become a real big key to our offense, whether it's running those plays or getting the ball downfield kind of in the slot. He was our leading receiver against Clemson. So I think he has a real future. I think he's going to make a lot of plays for us this year. It's just a matter of when he does it.
Shifting over to the defensive side, tell us about who some of the leaders are there. As we discussed earlier, through the first 2 games, the secondary has had its issues. I'm very intrigued to see a couple things, as far as, you guys have certainly dominated the ground attack, running for, as one of the Pirate fans, Johnny Robertson, noted earlier, in the last 2 matchups, 485 yards compared to just 185 for ECU. So, how will each team be able to run the football? How will each team be able to protect? And will they be able to, generate some pass rush to help out that secondary? And Anthony Smith, the NC State transfer for ECU, is a legit, probably 4.35 guy, and can, be an over-the-top threat.
Yeah, if you were to look up our defensive stats right now, you're going to see just like some very it's going to look like there's not a leader on the team, so to speak, but it's because of how much we rotate our players. But Brendan Harrington is a 6-year guy. He's gotten injured twice. Maybe he's lost a step, but he's the second leading tackler on the team right now with 12. He's a linebacker. Ronald Clark is a safety who is unfortunately amassed a lot of tackles. You never want your safeties to have a lot of tackles unless they're playing in the box. Usually means they're getting burnt or something like that. But Caden Sullivan is big on the inside. He's the linebacker. Kyle Arnholt is very, very smart. And we've got a lot of the guys making plays. Jordan Favors is a really good corner. Ethan Johnson is as good as well. They talk about how they missed interceptions last year, and they've got them counted like what they missed, and they know exactly their opportunities. So, and they haven't had one yet, and they haven't had one in a little bit. So I know that they're hungry. So if there's any batted balls hanging around, usually our defense has a way to find those, and hopefully Jordan or Ethan can get their hands on one soon.
Now, Big C, appreciate the time tonight. And I know you're making the trip this weekend. What are your plans? And then, I think through 3,000 tickets sold through the App State office, and obviously I'm sure some have gone in on tickets with East Carolina fans, much like I'm sure some Pirate fans did a year ago in Boone.
Oh yeah, I totally imagine a lot of intermingling of tailgates and things of that nature. I'm going to drive like halfway there Friday night. I'll be just outside of Raleigh. I'll have a short ride into Greenville on Saturday morning. I'll get up early because that's all I know to do. And so we'll go scout out the tailgate lot, see where the best place to go is, and we'll be there all afternoon.
Sounds good. And go ahead and tell folks how they can follow you guys on social media, on X and otherwise, and check out the Black and Gold podcast.
We're on all of the podcast platforms, Amazon, Spotify, Apple iTunes at Black and Gold Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and X and Twitter and Instagram. And then you can find me at Big C ASU on Twitter. That's my personal account.
Again, we appreciate. Go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say thanks for joining, man.
Absolutely,
have a great time in Greenville.
Y'all. We hope to. Thanks a lot. Appreciate y'all having us, and hopefully we have a good injury-free game between both teams.
No doubt. And let's see this series extended, beyond these next couple meetings.
100%. Thanks, guys.
All right, Big C, take care.
Thanks. Take care.
There you have Big C, Charles Haynes from the Black and Gold podcast. Does an excellent job covering the Mountaineers. I'll definitely give that show that was recorded last night. It dropped this morning early, and go and check that out via Spotify or pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. Those guys do an excellent job, and the premier podcast of the App State Mountaineers.
Absolutely. A lot of good comments here, Bubba, coming up.
Yeah, let's go through some of these. Have starred multiple comments throughout the show here. Craig Doucette chiming in. He said, didn't Ruffin McNeil coach at App State? Yes. He was the defensive coordinator there in 1993. He was the defensive line coach at ECU on Steve Logan's first staff. And then Jerry Moore hired him there at App in 93. I believe it was just 1 year that he was there. And then it seems like either UNLV or Fresno State that he moved on to. But Ruff was an assistant quite a number of places down through the years. And I know when he was at App, he played in the Yosef Club golf tournament, which was in Winston-Salem for one of the locations. And my dad had played in that golf tournament, with some App friends. And, obviously he and Ruff had that common bond between East Carolina. But also you have Axel chiming in via YouTube saying that we should use Brock Spalding like App uses Mackay. One of their wide receivers that we were just talking about. And, Mackay Jackson is someone to definitely keep an eye on as far as guys the Mountaineers will be getting the ball to, in addition to Caden Robinson and Christian Horn. Christian Horn thus far through 2 games, and he's the one that, if you guys recall that Hail Mary that they beat Troy on, Christian Horn, I believe, was on the receiving end of that. I may be mistaken, but I believe that was Christian, and 6 catches thus far for 136 yards. So right at 23 yards per reception.
Wow.
So be it Savone Revel or IBM or whoever in the secondary, we have to make sure that those guys are accounted for, and our front is getting some heat on Joey Aguilar.
Yeah, guys, I really believe that, not saying it because Matt's great at defense and I love defense as well. I just have a really good feeling about our defense. Our defense is so stingy. Like Matt said, they can run very well. I think that's been the missing ingredient for our defense, is that they've really, I hate to use the term, stepped up their game because it's overused, but I really feel like that they have really, when people say tighten up, they really have tightened up. And to me, I want to get y'all's opinion. I was thinking about this driving home on Saturday night. If we even just have, even if, I don't know why I'm saying this, but like in a positive way, but even if Garcia throws 2 interceptions, we can still win the game, don't you think?
It's tough to say, not knowing how it unfolds, but you certainly couldn't rule it out. I mean, you look at last year's game. The Pirates had 28 points despite just having 250 or 60 yards of offense because of 2 defensive touchdowns. Savone Revel had that scoop and score, very I say scoop and score, strip and score, whatever the case was, and then you also had the pick six by former corner, name redacted. We will not mention his name on the show.
Smart move. I'm glad you redacted his name. It's not worthy of ECU. Yeah, I mean, just bouncing back, Dave, to what you said really quick. I mean, I agree. I think our defense is in a much better spot this year. I think that, in terms of speed, I think we're a faster defense, and I think we have more depth. I think the key, though, like when you play an app, it's gap discipline, especially for the middle linebackers against the outside zone stretch. You saw last year where our D line was in good position, but our middle linebackers were kind of getting cut off, which led to some big plays. So, got to be disciplined. Got to make sure we have gap integrity, as they say, and and just stay very sharp there. So, so many keys to this game, but I do listen. We should be able to get stops. We know what's coming. Like, there's not going to be any surprise what App is doing offensively. So there's no reason why we can't get stops with this defense.
That's the thing, is that before we were giving up so many X plays and everything, and this defense is so much better. The problem with the 2-10 was we just couldn't score. It wasn't like in the past where we had our secondary giving up the big plays. It's just that was the frustrating part, is you have to score more points. I mean, it's just that simple. So this year, if you can have a mediocre, average offensive line to protect Garcia and or Hauser, this stretch coming up is going to be, it's not make or break for the season. We talked about that, but it depends on, what kind of team are we? Are we a potential, don't want to throw it out there, but I will, top 25 team if we have like a 9-win season? Or are we the team that's going to be playing at the very end of the year, the last game of the season, Thanksgiving weekend, trying just to get a bowl at 6-6? I mean, I think it's somewhere between 6 and 9 wins, but we've started out great so far, so good. This game, though, really, man, I told you guys, we have a lot of 50-50 games, and just like last week, but I really feel like on Saturday at Dowdy-Ficklen, when almost 51,000, close to a sellout already, this could have a bowl-like atmosphere. I really believe it's going to be that big, going to be that loud, and the best atmosphere we've had in a good while.
Yeah, it should be a heck of an atmosphere. And we have several other comments here that I'd like to get to, at least some of these. I mean, Craig said, what a juxtaposition. He said, Bubba's either on his car, or obviously meaning in his car, or camping, and Dave is a glamorous shot. So
that's my.
So yes, in the car, certainly not camping on a school night, but trying to. Wish I could, have a studio in my house, but I had to opt for the car, so I have some more quiet, where you could focus on, your thoughts and so forth. But also,
it's one of the benefits of having some kids that are a little bit older, Bubba. You don't get stuck in the car.
Yeah, exactly. Justin Butts is always.
See that glamour shot real quick, Dave. Throw that up.
Okay, sure. What do you guys think?
Boom! Look at that guy. Look at that. That looks professionally done.
It was actually. One of my friends is a photographer.
JR, I wanted to see if you have this stat because, I know one of our viewers referenced the average possessions that the Pirates have had thus far. I think we've had something like 28 possessions in 2 games, and I think all but 4 of those have been less than 3 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. I know against Old Dominion, we did have a 5+ minute possession, the one that we unfortunately threw the pick in the end zone. And then we also had a 4+ minute possession. But our average time of possession has to be, probably sub 3 minutes, or certainly not much over 3 minutes. JR, do you have that information? And yes, and give credit to Robert Dedrick. He was the one that provided that stat. And JR provides this from Pro Football Focus, top 5 out of 200 quarterbacks. The quote big time throw grades. You have Kirk Francis of Tulsa, Seth Hennigan of Memphis, Cam Ward of Miami, Shadur Sanders of Colorado, and Jake Garcia of East Carolina. So the American Athletic Conference well represented there with 3 of those 5 quarterbacks. And Johnny just went on to say that you're not on that type of list by chance. So again, it speaks to what we were saying earlier, that a lot of good for Jake Garcia. We just got to clean it up and take better care of the football, and very high ceiling for this offense if we can do that.
And Matt, and Bubba, you guys play football. I didn't. I've coached it, but I still believe that Jake has just got to let the game come to him. He's tried to make things happen that he doesn't have to make happen. Everybody was talking about Holton and, oh my God, he threw the ball away. Well, sometimes you need to throw the ball away, and Jake even talked about that post game.
It's local politics, bud.
Exactly. Jake Garcia is the real deal, and I hope sooner than later we see that. And you never know, this might be exactly what we need, is an App State game to really have him focus, because you can't say anymore, the Norfolk State game, when he threw a lot of interceptions, well, you can't say, well, it's Norfolk State. This is a really good opponent, and you throw that many interceptions in a game, like the first 2, it's going to be a long Saturday afternoon for us, an early evening. But guys, I really think that this is going to be a really tight game, like we talked about. What's the line, by the way? I haven't checked in the last few days. I'm at work. I'm like Matt Semenza. Got a lot going on.
Last I saw, Dave, App State -2.5, and then the over/under was 58.5. So they're clearly, expecting a game 31-28, or something of that nature. Mm-hmm. And that almost seems a little high. I would be, and I say it seems a little high. Obviously, that's where the turnovers factor into things, and because sooner or later, as good as our defense is, if you keep turning the ball over 4, 5, 6 times and giving the opposition that many extra possessions, then you're going to give up 4 or 5 touchdowns, if not more, no matter how good your D is.
Elliot Jameson chimes in, over under is 60.5 there on FanDuel.
Yeah. So it just depends on where you look. Mine was via the Score app earlier this afternoon, but yeah, they're expecting a game in the upper 20s or low 30s.
Yeah, what do you guys think about when we talked about the defense? Look at this from William. I agree with him on this. Imagine a game where everything starts to click offensively. We clean up the turnovers and let the defense do what they do. Have to get this done at home. I 100% agree with you. I'm going to go back to something Matt's talked about. This team, we're finding ways to win, right? But there's got to be that next step, the one that when we look back at the end of 2024, I'm not being dramatic. You look back and you say, Matt says, Dave, Bubba, Kyle, it was an App State game where we really saw the team turn the corner and take it to the next level. I know I'm not Mr. Cliches tonight, but that's exactly. This is a game that you could really see Jake Garcia be the star that he really is.
Yeah, and I think William Landon makes a really good point. Can you throw that comment back up there? I think William really kind of nails it here, and this is something we've talked about, and it's something we're hoping for, and that will happen. That is going to happen at some point, where everything starts to click offensively. Beyond the fact that, and not to belabor the point, but beyond the fact that we have a new OC, a new quarterback, right? The quarterback, it obviously is the one that gets the most attention, right? Making the reads, making the throws. But within that, the receivers have to be on the same page. They have to be in the right positions, depending on what defense is thrown at them. So, like, it's one thing to just know the offense, but every week you're going to see a different look. So it's positioning. And you saw one of the picks in the very first game. Bubba, I think, outlined this one where we had two receivers within a few yards of each other, which kind of led to that interception because it basically, it took away the spacing. So William makes a really good point. Hopefully that starts on Saturday. And I don't see any reason why it can't. Honestly, there's no reason why it can't start this Saturday. Listen, Clemson had a lot of success against App last week. Does that mean, is that a one-off type thing? Or is that, is Clemson that good? Or is that a sign that maybe App State defensively has slipped a little bit this year? We'll find out on Saturday.
No doubt. And I was going to put one up. I wanted to ask you guys about this real quick. Sorry, Bubba. Axel just said a lot of it is on Ergel at center and the right side of the O-line. We've seen the reason I brought that up, we've seen some low snaps. Just want to get your guys' thoughts on that. You're playing App State. You can't have those low snaps, not trying to call people out, but the low snaps has been an issue also that we've touched on a little bit, but it is a concern.
Absolutely. It throws off the entire timing of the play, especially if it's a quick, like I call it a 3-step route where it's just a quick get the ball, one read and go. That throws off the timing of the entire play. So it's definitely been an issue this year. I thought it was a little better last week, but we still saw some errant snaps. It's got to be cleaned up. It's again, what do you want to be? Do you want to be an average team, or do you want to be a team that's competing for the conference championship? If you do, the little things like that have to be cleaned up.
I'm going to say it right here. I don't know if I have, guys, but I'm going to put it out there. I can't remember. I did in the preseason. Hopefully it's not too late. My prediction, East Carolina, Tulane. We're going to be in New Orleans playing Tulane in the conference championship in December. You can that's a hot take, but that's my prediction, guys.
I hope you're right. Bubba, what do you think?
Hey, obviously I'd love to go bowling no matter where it is. My hope is that we can find a way to capitalize on a conference schedule that doesn't include Tulane or obviously South Florida, Memphis, and we can be the surprise team in the American Athletic Conference Championship game. But
that'll be on ABC, fellas. Matt Semenza, will you be going to that big game if you can? I know Chase has a busy schedule with sports.
If we were to go to like a conference championship or a major bowl game, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Matt says go big or go home.
That's right.
That's right. William Landon chiming in as always. He said thanks for the overview on App Big C. Good stuff. I appreciate that, William. Always enjoy your contributions to the show. Axel, he says, unfortunately, I don't believe the plan that Big C outlined for the App defense will pan out if ECU does not huddle or allow substitutions. And obviously, our tempo is our bread and butter. That's our identity and who we are, even though you look at it against Old Dominion, and I was talking about this last night on the Black and Gold podcast. I said, you have 4 turnovers, you run the ball 51 or 52 times, and you still snap it 93 times. That's incredible. I would like to see, if we, had no turnovers or 1 turnover, and then you have probably 105 plays or something.
Yeah, and just to kind of comment really quick on like the pace and whatnot. Like you heard Blake Harrell and Mike Houston both talk about in their press conference today and yesterday. I think it was Blake Harrell about tempo and about the number of plays run. And one of the things Blake said that I thought was really interesting was he felt like our defense, we had too many guys with too many snaps last week. We had guys up in like the 70s, and he didn't like that. He doesn't want to see it and he makes a good point. if you're playing 70, 75 snaps every week on defense, eventually you're going to wear down. You might start to have injuries. So one of the goals I know this week for ECU, and I think App as well, is to, play with more depth, more guys like in the 50, 45 range, and kind of rotate guys in and keep them fresh. And I just thought that was interesting that both Blake and Mike Houston mentioned that today.
Question for you guys real quick. One thing I was thinking about earlier in the week, and I want to get on a preview, and Big C reminded me of that earlier. He was talking about maybe App State hasn't shown everything. What about East Carolina? You both are former players. Is it possible that we save some stuff for Game 3 because you know that you've got App State, you know that Norfolk State, you're not going to show everything because we were the dominant team. Old Dominion's more of a 50-50 game, but this is the first 50-50 game that we've had at home. It's App State. The two teams are great football programs. It just seems like for me that we're going to save some stuff. We've got something up our sleeve that we're saving for App, knowing that we've lost 2 straight.
Did we lose Bubba there? I don't know if we lost Bubba. I could certainly chime in on that.
I'm here, Matt. What was the question?
A little bit of an echo there, Bubba. You got a little echo. But
I think we're good now.
Yeah. Just to touch on that really quick, Dave. I think I don't know if it's a matter of like holding things back as much as it is just the evolution of the offense and the comfort level with the players. That every week you get a little more comfort. As each game passes, you have guys like getting on the same page and being more comfortable within the scheme. So to your point, like each week you should see a progression in a positive way where we're bringing more to the offense, new wrinkles, and just seeing guys like just play with a comfort level within the offense. So, I hopefully this week we do see something new. But we shall see.
Yeah, Axel, I know Bubba had that starred. It says he says that Def expects some trickeration from App, probably end around fade pass or something.
Wouldn't surprise me to see a little trickeration. Got to be ready
like
for it.
Sorry, Matt. A game like this, and where there is so much energy in the stadium, and guys could be a little too amped. Where it makes them susceptible to trick play. Whatever you want to call it, like that. Definitely, if you see. That's something. If you were to see an early turnover by the Pirates and App State gets the ball in plus territory, or vice versa, where the Pirates force a turnover from App State or a quick 3 and out, and you get the ball around midfield or on the App side of the 50, then you could see a quick shot to Anthony Smith or some sort of gadget play.
Yeah, this is such a tight game, and Matt, I love riverboat gambler kind of guy. I love these trick plays, but at the same time, it has to be one thing that always in the back of my mind I'm thinking about. Trick plays have to be at the right time, right? It can't just be there. It's going to be, I hate to use the term, but maybe scripted in.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the timing of it is great. Like I love a trick play coming right out of a TV timeout. I love that. I think that's a perfect spot for it because, I don't know if like people realize like when you're a player, like those TV timeouts are just, they drive you nuts. It's so frustrating when you're in the flow of a game and then it has to go to a TV timeout, and it drives you nuts as a player. So sometimes you can catch people napping, coming out of that break. And so, yeah, definitely timing, when the other team least expected. I think that's a good point.
So I want to ask you guys before we get out of here. I know that, first of all, another huge crowd tonight. Thank you so much. And if you're listening We had Brian. We are still a podcast. We've had some issues with, we'll try to find out our distribution, why sometimes it's not updating. So we'll work on that. But I have many people that say, fellas, I know you do too, that they listen to our show as they're riding. Like tomorrow I'm going to the Outer Banks, so I'll be catching up on some shows, some of my podcasts, including this great show. But so keep that in mind. Also want to let everybody know, Matt, you're a music guy. Bubba is too. We have 3 different podcasts. We have 3 different playlists on Spotify. So if you love you tailgating on Saturday, we have the Sports Objective Tailgate. You can listen to. We have the TSO road trip. So if you're taking a long road trip and you want to hear some songs, and then also those of you that are from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, remember K-Tel records from the late 60s to mid 80s. We have music from that time period. So want to let everybody know that check that out. And also, Bubba, I know that you and Matt are putting out great content. Great. We have different reels and shorts that we're putting out and working on that to increase that. So for those of you looking for, like Matt put one out about the defense, the comment that he made that was awesome on the playback. So be listening for that as well.
Yeah, we'll certainly
we really appreciate the likes. Sorry, Bob. Really appreciate the likes, with the thumbs up on YouTube and Facebook. That helps us certainly continue to promote, push out as much content as possible. So, we really appreciate all the ECU fans chiming in.
All right, we're running late tonight. Do you guys, before we go, prediction on the game, and those of you that have a prediction that are playing at home or wherever you are on YouTube and Facebook, if you want to put your predictions in the chat as well, and we'll get out of here.
Now, I'll say before I make any type of prediction, Robert Dedrick chiming in, talking about something that we discussed on the playback on Sunday night, and that is the way we used Winston Wright Jr. Against Old Dominion. He had, I think, 11 touches in that game, 7 of those as a receiver. Had a carry on a jet sweep for 6 yards, and then 3 kickoffs. Not a great average on those kickoff returns, but as Coach Houston noted on Monday night on Inside Pirate Athletics, I believe it was, said that you had a kickoff or 2 that was close to going to the house, and Winston himself was talking about one that he had against Norfolk State. He said it should have been 6. So keep an eye on that, as well as his, how he's used in this game, especially if App's bringing a lot of pressure and getting the ball out quick to Winston Wright on those screens, and then also shallow crossers. And the play specifically here that Robert referenced, in the fourth quarter, we had the ball probably about our own 30-yard line. Winston Wright lines up beside Jake Garcia in the backfield, kind of disguising him there to see if they recognize the personnel. He runs a seam route. It was a nice 25 to 30-yard game, but it could have gone to the house had he been able to hit him in stride. That was one that, in the stands, obviously excited about the nice gain, but I was slapping the bleacher because I knew it could have been 6. And then Richard Allsbrook says App State historically a smaller defense, but strong and fast, gave our offensive line fits last year. I hope our new fast-paced offense cuts down on sacks and disruptions. No doubt ECU, both games against App State, has certainly struggled to run the football, failing to reach 100 yards in each of those. And meanwhile, as we noted, the Apps have run for nearly 500 yards. So intrigued to see how it goes in the trenches, especially with the Pirates being so deep, on the defensive line. All these guys that are starters now and playing significant snaps, like Deontay Johnson, Surad Ware, Chad Stevens, etc. They were freshmen, either true freshmen or redshirt freshmen in that 2021 game. And you've noticed that pretty much every single one of them, when they've done interviews this summer and early into the season. When asked, who are you looking forward to playing the most? They're saying App State, that this is the game that's circled because of what's happened the last 2 times. So we shall see how it unfolds, but it's certainly not going to be because of a lack of motivation for East Carolina. And then same thing on the other side. After App's performance against Clemson, they're going to be very focused and highly motivated.
No doubt, guys. And we have some predictions. Robert Dedrick. Excuse me, let's go with Axel first. He likes us, I guess, 24-21 Pirates. Robert Dedrick, he says 34-28. We have Johnny Robertson, 31-27. Let's see. We've got Richard Allsbrook. He's bullish on the Pirates, 38. App State, 14.
Richard's bringing it.
Richard, if that happens, I'll certainly buy you a meal. the next time we have the opportunity, that'll be tremendous.
Just so everybody knows, like, we have our own thing on this show, like closest, whoever has the closest or best prediction. Dave actually has to buy them a steak dinner at the restaurant of your choice. So,
oh man, yeah,
that's how we do it on TSO.
The Seahorse Steakhouse and Daddy's Steaks and Mama's
Cakes. That's right. Philip says 35-25 Pirates. I'll give my prediction. I'm going Pirates 27, App 23. That's what I think it'll be a 4-point game. Robert says Aguilar scares me. I hope our defense contain him. 31-20 Pirates. Thumbs up.
Yeah.
All right.
Obviously, just game 3. Hands down, the best quarterback, in my opinion. The Pirates have seen thus far. We know the situation with Norfolk State. Their typical starter was injured, and they were playing the JUCO transfer, and then Grant Wilson with ODU. Kind of average. Certainly not a bad quarterback, but not as dynamic as Joey Aguilar. And very intrigued to see how we're able to get some pressure. You did generate 4 sacks against Old Dominion. However, a couple of those, fortunately, were coverage sacks. Where our guys probably, covered 4 or 5 seconds. And Wilson had a decent amount of time to throw on those 2 or 3 occasions, and then eventually, our defensive line was able to get to him. But very intrigued to see how our defensive unit, that's so deep, can handle this App State offense that has been a struggle in the past. And Savone Revel, interested to see those veteran wide receivers like Caden Robinson and Christian Horn. Do they try to go after Savone, or are they going to try to pick on IBM?
By the way, Richard says that the special teams and defense will score. That's awesome. Hey, by the way, Matt, thanks to Matt Semenza, my best friend. Robert says he'll wait until Army Keen Steakhouse in New York City, LOL. So thanks a lot, Matt. I appreciate you.
Wow, Robert's going big. Robert skipped over the Outback and went right to the best steakhouse in the country. I like the way he thinks, man.
Frank Durham says 34-27 Pirates. And here's a great point William makes. He's been bringing it tonight, Matt and Bubba. This game is personal for Blake this year. They do not have the skill guys of previous teams, and I think we roll them. So
I think William is bringing it tonight. I think that's another really good point too, because again, when you look at what motivates people, Blake Harrell has not had success, in recent games, as good as he's been. And I you guys know, I always sing Blake Harrell's praises. I think he's tremendous. As good as he's been, we've struggled defensively against App. So this is a big challenge for him. I'm sure he's been working on it and looking at film during the offseason. So I'm sure he takes this personal. He's going to want to have some success. So another good point, man.
And we bring in Kyle for his pick, and we're getting ready to get out of here. Kyle from the
Yeah, I was wondering. I've been backstage for about 10 minutes now. I'm going to go East Carolina 27, And App State 21.
Kyle's our guest picker, like on College Game Day.
KFLGB
That's right.
With a late appearance, like the Lakers, right? The late arriving fans, they show up at halftime.
Yeah.
Another point about this comment from William Landon, though, as far as the game being personal for Blake, I noticed on X that when Sean Clark made the comment at his weekly press conference, in addition to after today's practice, concerning the atmosphere and how it's going to be, he was very complimentary of the atmosphere, but he also said, I don't think this will impact our team at all. So Blake Harrell posted it, reposted it on X, just saying, let's make sure Dowdy is rocking on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, and you can try to make a difference. I understand his point is they've played at Clemson, they've played at Texas A&M, they've played at North Carolina, so they're not going to be intimidated by the crowd at East Carolina, is his point. But we don't have to intimidate them. What we can do is motivate the hell out of our defense. And that defense is already a quality defense. And you get loud for them, and they got something to prove against the App anyway, and it could really make a difference. So, yeah, it's close to a sellout. Let's get it rocking. And I think defense is highly motivated. To me, obviously, the key to the game is, besides stopping their outside zone run, is going to be can Garcia cut down on the interceptions? Just give me 2, Garcia. I ask you to be perfect. Limit it to 2 interceptions the whole game, 1 per half, and I think we'll win the game.
That's what I said earlier.
I would just say, and this, obviously, like anybody who's listening to this show is a diehard. So we know what we're going to get from everybody who listens to this show. But for the average fans or like the fringe fans, be prepared for a 4-quarter game. Like there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. There's going to be swings. There's probably going to be times where we're down.
Matt, you lost your audio.
I think we're going to be down a touchdown.
Well, I mean, we definitely could be down several times during the game. We're 3-point underdog. 2.5, I think, is the latest I saw. So we're underdog for a reason. Don't base App. If you're ignorant enough to base Appalachian State's football program on that performance against Clemson, then you're probably the same people that were basing Clemson's performance and their football program on their performance against Georgia. There's gonna be a pissed off football. I think you have 2 pissed off football teams. You're gonna have a pissed off football team because they feel like they got something to prove against the App, and then you're gonna have a pissed off App team because of what happened against Clemson. So it could be a very physical, testy football game. Could be a lot of fun. Got to keep the penalties at a minimum, though. People got to keep their emotions in check.
Yep.
Absolutely. Let's do it. In fact, thanks for this big crowd, as always, here on our Pirate Preview. And thanks for Kyle coming in. We were wondering when you were coming in, Kyle, so thank you so much. Matt, you're the best, and Bubba as well. Thanks to Big C bringing it tonight for App State. And we've had a lot of great listeners and viewers tonight, so appreciate it very much. And we'll work on, as Brian mentioned, we'll work on the podcast and see what's going on there as far as distribution, and we'll do that very soon. All right, guys, we'll get out of here. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You've been watching the Pirate Preview on the Sports Objective. Good night, everybody, and go Pirates.
You're watching the Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.